So gradually we have reached to the last section from the business environment domain. Just a reminder, business environment domain encompasses 7% of your exam only, like 14 questions in your real exam will be built around these scenarios from the business environment. So far what we have studied, and we'll try to finish today. The last topic in this is probably the project compliance and governance. So yeah, so we need to have governance in projects, and to some extent, governance is necessary. Too much of governance is also a headache and not necessary. So we need to find a balance where we do monitor the ongoing progress, issues, escalations, resolve those. So governance is established around those scenarios where which are outside the area of project manager influence. Maybe he needs support from top management. So the governance is established to provide that necessary support to the project managers in issues like when has to deal with the other projects. He or she has dependencies on the other projects. So we need to have a structure in place where he can escalate to. So think of it like a steering committee that you form for a project, and you see them. You present the project status to the steering committee bi-weekly basis. You can agree on the frequency. Again, it depends that how much tight governance you want to put in place. So not everything would be highlighted to the governing body, because governance will include the senior vice president, maybe sometimes vice president or top management, and also the director PMO, or maybe any other functional managers. I think people are waiting in the queue. Let me have them. Sorry, guys. Okay. Yeah, I need to share the link. Okay. Excuse me for the hiccup. So we want to establish some kind of accountability also on the shoulders of project manager. Again, it's a trust that organization has placed with this project on the project manager, giving the project manager the resources for the organization to utilize and deliver the results. So it's important that he feel accountable, that he has to answer, he has to show the project status, he has to give them the progress and overview. At the key decision points, you need to take the advice from the governing body that shall we proceed with the project now, given the situation that we are in. So if you ask me, that it's two-way governance. It's the accountability that project manager should feel that he is answerable to the board, and also it's a kind of a support that he can leverage the governance to get the support for example, if the key decisions have to be taken, for example, to approve a key change request that just came in, that has a significant impact. So project manager has to review, assess, and then take it to the governance board so that they can approve it or reject it. So if you ask what frequency the governing body will be meeting, then it will be throughout the project life cycle, especially on the phase gates, such as at the end of one phase, you should be having a review for the next phase. Key decisions will be taken that either we approve the next phase to continue, or we close the project, given the fact that project has not delivered, or it is not there is no more business case. I mean, the business case is valid or not valid. So these key decisions are taken at the governance level. So how much of the governance is too much? Well, if you ask me, the predictive projects, whenever we will see this sign, we'll say that these are the waterfall or predictive projects, which means that there will be too much of strict processes will be in place, such as change management, and the governance will be pretty much tight here in these kind of projects, because there is strict change control expected, and unlike the agile projects, which are flexible in the scope. So whenever we will have governance, it is empty without the support of the PMO department. So PMO department definitely will be part of the governance, and it's in fact not the project manager role to establish the governance structure, but it's in fact, if the organization has the PMO department, then it's the role of PMO department to ensure that for each key strategic project, a governance structure is established, including the top management, including the key stakeholders, including the project manager, and then PMO has at the dashboard, which project manager has to provide the input in, and PMO will be the one who will be presenting the project on the behalf of the project manager. But project manager will be answerable and accountable, but PMO will be showing the status just like the dashboard. So sure. So if the governance meeting is there, then you are supposed to highlight key deviations from the budget, scope, schedule, any resource limitations, any risk that you foresee, any dependencies, internal or external, to the organization. And then the governance body will support you with the key actions, like you need to approach X and Y person from the X and Y department if you need to resolve this issue. So like I went to my steering committee and I asked for the help, and then they will guide me therein. I think again people are waiting in the queue or nobody. Okay. So what are the components of project governance? Part of the governance is to approve or reject the changes that we may have in the project. Then we will have our key decision making that I said that whether we need to approve the project, next phase of the project, go no go decisions will be taken as part of the governance. And then we may have to escalate the issues and the risks which are beyond the project manager area of influence, or he actually could not resolve these issues together with his team. Now he has raised those risks and issues for further support. Then we said that there will be stage gate reviews, which means that if the phase is ended, do we have a go ahead for the next phase of the project? Yes, then we'll start the next phase. If no, then the project will be documented that it finished at the end of phase one, and we did not got the approval for the phase two. So these are the stage gates or phase reviews that we also have in the predictive projects and also in the kind of incremental projects. Now, what else we do see here? We do see other steps as well, such as project success and deliverable acceptance, because at the key governance or stage gate reviews, you will also present or demo or the completed deliverables, and then you will get the formal acceptance of these deliverables. It's not kind of a demo or a complete review, but you will at least formalize the closure of a phase one with the deliverables, which are like you will formalize the acceptance, or you can call it validate scope or sign off the UAT or whatever, but you will need to see the governance to get their sign off on whether it is a change request which need to be approved, or it is a completed deliverable for which we need to sign off so that we can proceed toward invoicing and we can pay our contractors. Yeah, and as I said that there will be review of the changes. If the change request has been put forward and the project manager has done his homework, he has reviewed it, he has assessed it, the impact, and now he is ready to present how much time is needed to incorporate this change, so he can take it up to the governance board in writing. He can take the approval from the governance board through this kind of a meeting. Pretty much these are the important topics from the components of the governance. If you guys have any question, you may ask. No, then we can move on. Well, so what about agile projects? Do we build governance around those projects? Yes or no? Yes, we can have governance around agile projects, but it is how it is incorporated. It is kind of a part of a process actually. So in agile, let's say we consider Scrum as a framework, and in Scrum we have iterations of sprints, and each sprint is, let's say, of 14 days, let's say. So we call it like one sprint will run for 14 days, and then we will have a demo or review or sprint review. So having sprint review is one kind of governance that is built into the process, that each 15 days or 15th day or end of 14th day, we will have a sprint review. That is kind of a phase review, analogous to the predictive projects, where we said that at the end of the phase, we will have a review. But here we are saying at the end of a sprint one, we are having a review. So it's built into the part of the built into the Scrum framework that we meet every end of the sprint for a sprint review. Then we so this is only the sprint, but one or two sprints we may take to prepare one release. So we may take one or two sprints and then we make one release, and then release means that working feature will go to the production. So now one feature may take more than one sprint or one sprint. So we may have another checkpoint here that when we are releasing. So the release schedule is also something that we also establish, and this is also part of the governance, that we need to get an approval of a release, that this thing will go to production, and then customers will see a new feature. So we again need another review, another approval within the agile framework. So one is for the sprints, and then second is for the releases. And yeah, and on the daily basis, we also see that that in the Scrum framework, the team meets every day and they ask for what has been done. Yes, since we met yesterday. So each developer will present, or at least he will or she will tell that what they have worked on since we last met and what they are working today. And if there are any issues, impediments on their way, then they will be escalating to the Scrum Master. So this is also the daily stand-up meeting is also something which is a kind of a governance which is daily embedded into the sprint, and it is embedded into the Scrum framework. Yeah, so these are the type of governances which are already embedded, like sprint review, release approvals, and release management, and then daily stand-up. These are the kind of ceremonies that we have in order to ensure that governance is there. So key decisions are taken. If there are any technical hindrances, then the Scrum Master will get to know during the daily stand-up, and then he will take it further, and he will resolve those impediments together with the team. Similarly, if during the sprint review we see any feedback is received from the customer when we have we have shown them the product or the working feature, and then they give us the feedback, then we'll incorporate the feedback. So that will also kind of approving the deliverable or rejecting the deliverable. It happens during the sprint review, just like the way we said in the predictive projects. It happens at the end of the phase. So I know when we do this in the Excel sheet, we understand it much better way. So for everyone, I will just take you through to the Excel to explain you one more thing quickly. And this is something we've been doing, I think, in the past also. So we talked about pretty much of iterations in a let's say Scrum framework, okay, which is basically agile, in fact, and agile methodology has many frameworks. So we can say one of those is the Scrum, which we are talking now. I will highlight it. Okay, so within the Scrum framework, we have iterations or sprints. Okay, and what do we do in a sprint is we gather some requirements, and then we design, develop, test, and deliver, and QA or maybe launch. So, and this is what we do on a repeated basis. Like, so what we have here is a sprint review. So sprint review. So when we have a sprint review, we will demo to the client, get customer feedback. Okay. So this is a governance checkpoint. This is one of the governance checkpoints. Similarly, when I said this sprint, let's say it's a sprint for 14 days. It's a 14-day sprint. Okay. During 14 days, we design, develop, test, and launch, and then show something which is working. Okay. Why this is? Okay. So what do we do during these 14 days? On daily basis, we have daily stand-up. That's our second governance checkpoint in iterative or in the agile projects. So this is a daily stand-up meeting. What do we do in the daily stand-up meeting? We are with a team of developers, testers. We just discuss the day. We plan the day, what we need to work today, what we worked since yesterday, what is done, what is in progress, and if there is any impediment on the way. Quick. It's not just a status update. It's also a touch point to know where the team needs the support from the Scrum Master. So 3 questions: what did you do since yesterday? Then we may ask, what are you going to work on today? What you will be working on today? This is an interesting question because you see, unlike project managers, the Scrum Masters ask an interesting question: what you will be working on today? That's give us one indication that the project manager is the kind of directive role which assigns the tasks. However, the Scrum Master which we have said that Scrum Master is the a role analogous to project manager in the predictive projects. So Scrum Master, unlike, he empowers the team. He empowers the team in a way that he asks them that the team is self-directed. Team is self-directed. Team is telling you, I'm going to work on this user story. So interesting that team is self-directed, self-motivated, right? They organize themselves around the world. These are characteristics of agile teams. That these teams are self-motivated, self-directed. That's why we see this question, that what you will be working on today. And then the Scrum Master may ask another, yeah, Danish, you have a question?
Yeah, but I had it, but I think you already answered part of it. It was just because I do not come from the background of software, so this Agile and Scrum is a little bit new for me. When you said that we do sprints of 14 days, then we do 2 sprints, and then we do a release. So release is something in the software. I mean, you tell that, okay, we finalized this specific concept that we wanted to try in this sprint, and now we are going to launch it within the software. Or it just means that we meet with the stakeholders, let's say the customers or the clients for which we are developing it for, and we say, okay, we are not going to change it anymore or something. I mean, I did not get the concept.
Yeah, I will come to that one.
Okay, thanks.
Give me a moment. So when I said that, consider that you are working on a feature. Let's take an example. Again, I would use the example of the insurance company, which is selling the motor insurance, and then they, let's say, decide that they need to complement their third-party product with one add-on. Okay, so one add-on Maybe that is a windscreen protection, let's say, to enable windscreen protection in their core product. Okay, so in their core product of third-party insurance. Okay, that is a feature, third-party insurance. Okay, so now they need to introduce this feature. Now this feature might take us a single sprint to deliver, or it might take us 2 or 3 sprints to deliver. Okay, now for development team to deliver this feature, it may take 3 sprints to deliver. Okay, this single feature, because this single feature might be divided it into many stories. Okay, we have many stories, which we need to work on, then we are able to deliver this feature. Okay, and I'll come to it that the way that we describe our requirements is that we describe our requirements in a kind of a user story. Just for the time being, you consider this. Okay, so one feature may take many user stories to be developed, and each user story may take, I mean, each sprint may have many user stories. Okay, so maybe we are finishing this feature in 3 sprints. Okay, and now here is our release 1. So our release 1 is ready. Our release 1, because we are not going to release a half-built feature into the production. So once we know all the stories, front end, back end, all the stories are done. Maybe it took us 1, 2, 3 sprints. Then only we are in a position to release the feature. So prior to releasing the feature, we will also have again testing. Okay, so we will have a testing that, although we did the testing as part of our sprint, regular sprint that we tested, we designed, developed, and tested. But when we are going to release a product, we will do some sequence of tests, maybe regression tests, UAT tests, pre-prod test, pen test. All these testing will be done to ensure that our feature will not disturb the existing product. Okay, regression test. And then once we are sure that it will not introduce any vulnerabilities and it will not disturb the working product, then we release the feature. So the idea here was to tell you that there is another touch point, or maybe governance touch point, which is release approval that we take at the end of our UAT what we call it, pre-production test, regression test, pen test. After this, we take a release approval, and then we release the product feature. So we have governance in agile projects on daily basis, which is built around the daily stand-up meeting. And then we said that we have a governance at the sprint review, which is, we said that it is at the end of a sprint. And then third is that we said at release review, we may call it that release review. Are we good to release a product feature? So we have the governance in the agile projects in this way. It is embedded in this way. So last question that I missed here in the daily stand-up was, is there any impediment? Is there any impediment on your way? Because when we are asking, our Scrum Master is asking 3 questions to the development team on daily basis. He is asking, is there any impediment on your way? What did you finish since yesterday? And what will you be working on today? So these are 3 important questions that Scrum Master will be asking. And it's kind of a touch point where we get to know some risks, technical dependencies, so that we can work on these things together. I hope I made it clear, guys, that how governance is ensured within the agile projects.
Yeah, clear, thanks.
Yeah, daily stand-up, release review, sprint review. And let's go back to our slide, and it says that we have sprints, we have releases which are tied to specific dates, and then we have daily stand-ups to ensure that we have monitoring in place. Well, okay, so again, back to hybrid. Not hybrid, this is still predictive. Okay, so what do we mean by governance board is the steering committee. I gave another name of it, which is steering committee, and it can be called as governance board or project board, whatever you name it. In predictive projects, the name used to be governance board or steering committee. I think same goes for the agile as well. Now, what does they do? It may include the sponsor, senior managers. As I said, PMO will always be part of it. And what they do, they review the deliverables, provide a sign-off, and they provide decision support. Like if you are stuck, you need some decision making from the governance, because the sponsor is part of this governance board. So always remember, who is funding the project? Sponsor. So sponsor can approve, go ahead, can provide a go ahead for the next phase to continue, even next sprint to continue, or next phase to continue. It is the sponsor which will provide the go ahead for next phase or next sprint. So yeah, so this key decision making support as well as the sign off of the deliverables which are just finished. Now, a question from the attendees: does anyone have experience with the project governance board in your projects that you have done in the organizations? And feel free to share if you have any interesting story, or at least you have been part of those governance boards or have attended those meetings ever. Gigi?
Yeah, morning.
Morning. Welcome. Would you like to share some experience with the governance board?
Can I pass for this time?
No problem. No problem.
Thank
All
you.
right. So the idea is clear for us. Yeah, that in the projects that we do, not always the organization that we work in will have a bulky management overhead like the PMO department and even the titles. I mean, we have organizations which are small organizations which even cannot afford a PMO department. And then we may also see that projects are not managed in a kind of a methodological way. That's where we are saying this is how it is supposed to be. This is how it is supposed to be, that we should establish a governance around projects, because we don't want to miss the key milestones. We don't want to miss the project when it is too late. We cannot steer a project when it is too late. We have to steer the project uh, right from the beginning. We have to keep hold of the project so that it should not steer away. Everything should be in our control: budget, timelines, resources, so that when we establish these checkpoints from time to time, that here we meet again and we see what's happening, here we meet again and see what's happening, here we meet and see what's happening. So what happens is, when cost, schedule, and budget is reviewed at key touch points, always we say that we are monitoring and controlling. We are monitoring this project and controlling it, so that it's never too late. If it drifts away, we can bring it back. Otherwise, it will just go out of our hand, and then we will not be able to control it. So for the right control, we need to have governance. Then we need to know what are the issues that we should or always take to the management, and we should not take everything to the management, because when they say a problem, when it reaches beyond the tolerance level, then you should escalate it to the management or above level, to PMO, or maybe the right stakeholder or the responsible stakeholder is the keyword, because you will not escalate every problem to the PMO. You will escalate every problem to the responsible stakeholder who is authorized to take an action, right? Now, if you don't know, then you will need an advice. And who will advise? Again, your steering committee will advise that who is this responsible stakeholder to whom you need to take this issue to. So then you need the steering committee from time to time. So, but not always all issues will be escalated. If the issue is here somewhere, then project manager and his team will actually discuss internally, and then try to resolve. And they have the right authority to take actions. But if it goes beyond the tolerance level, that you see that you couldn't stop the leakage of the money derailing or the time which is getting lost, then you need to escalate to the responsible stakeholder who can help you. So governance means that you will also define the escalation procedures and escalation thresholds and the tolerances as part of setting up your governance structure. That any delay greater than 5 days will be escalated to the steering committee. Beyond this, we will try to resolve it ourselves. Similarly, maybe this is an example, maybe plus minus 100,000. Maybe 100,000 is something, or maybe that's too big. $100,000 is too big. Maybe $10,000, maybe $5,000, whatever the percentage or whatever you decide that it should be escalated, because they will not give us more time or budget. So why wait? Let's escalate. If we can save a day, then let's escalate so that we can save a day. If we can save $1, let's escalate. If we can save $1, why waiting when 10K, 10K, 1,000 or 100K, 1,000 is lost? Yeah. Any question here, guys? No. Let's move on. Again, we have distinction between predictive and agile. How does governance life cycle works? We know that predictive projects have a start date and end date. So once the project finishes, once the project finishes, we are done. If the phase of the project is finished, we will have some phase gate reviews happening at the end of each phase, right? Maybe another phase will be started, and then we will have a review at the end of that phase. So these are pretty much the deliverables will be accepted, sign-off will be provided, go no go decision will be given at this point, and then move on. Then go no go decision will be given at this point, and we move on. And ultimately, we have a flag here that we deliver the project. Now, value delivery concept is with the product. So you're delivering the shippable product in the end. So either it is towards the end of the project life cycle, your value will be realized, that you will be able to ship this product and then sell this product. So you will be realizing the value in the end. But as I said, governance was built in the agile, and we have seen it's repetitive like this. Every sprint, every day, we meet, we do daily stand-up. Sprint after sprint, each day of a 14-day sprint, we meet and we do daily stand-up. Then after each sprint completion, we have a review. Then after each feature completion, when it is going to be released, we have a review, and so on, until and unless we stop this cycle. And why we'll stop this cycle? That we don't have any more funding to start any new sprint, because each sprint will require some resources. And then if the management has decided that product has reached to its maturity, then we'll not run any more sprints. So it will stop funding this kind of a project. All right, but remember we talked about our project management principles, and one of the principles is listed here, that as a PM, a project manager has to recognize, evaluate, and respond to system interactions. So, which means that we don't do the projects in silo. We are part of an organization, and organization has various projects which are happening in parallel. We have dependencies on each other. Being project managers of our own projects, we may depend on each other for some deliverables. So there is a give and take. Always expect some give and take between few projects, between few stakeholders, between departments. So project manager has to recognize this, and then he has to evaluate and then respond. If someone needs some support from you, then you need to provide the support. If you are expecting a support from another project manager, they have to provide you the support. So all we are saying is that what do we escalate during these reviews is that we need some support internally, externally, and then we are getting that support by being directed to the responsible stakeholder. So that's how we recognize, evaluate, and respond to system interactions. All good? Summary. I like these tables because they summarize what we have just said. So predictive, adaptive. Again, predictive, we said that it is split into phases, and then we said that adaptive is split into releases or sprints. And in a predictive, we said that we have phase gate reviews. We call them governance gate reviews, or we may call them kill points, tool gates, whatever. In the case of predictive, agile, we review the results as part of the sprint review, right? We said that there is a sprint review, which happens just like the phase review. And then what do we do at the phase review? We either continue to the next phase, or we continue to modify the existing phase, or we end the project for a program. But what do we do at the adaptive? We get the feedback, and then we improve. Either we improve the existing feature, or we start a new iteration with new scope of work for a new feature. So we get feedback from the customer. If we have something to be fixed, we will fix in the upcoming iteration. Otherwise, we'll move on with a new feature and the new stories. And what else? We have the concept of minimal viable product. What does it mean? We have a concept of definition of done, and these are the important concepts that we should understand with. Just remember, I said that in Agile we have user stories. So a user story is something called as, like, as a user, I want this functionality so that I can do some stuff. So let's say I say that as a banking customer, I want the functionality that I should be able to transfer the money. So I need a functionality for the payment transfer so that I can transfer the money to my beloved ones. Okay, so that's the kind of a user story. Like, as a user, as a banking customer, I want the payment transfer functionality so that I can send money. So this is one user story. So now for this user story, for a developer to work on this user story, it should have three things. It should have the card. By card, I just meant that whatever I just said will be written on a small sticky note that that as a customer, I want to be able to send money. Simple. So that's a card. Okay. And then it should have a conversation. That conversation is what we are talking about, like in detail, like some conversation which is built around like a discussion that happens on this functionality. And then it should have acceptance criteria, which is very important, that how this story will be considered, that it is developed, done, and then it is accepted. So this is what is meant here, that this story, is it in a position that a developer can right away understand and start developing? Like, this is very clear and clear enough story for a developer to work on. If it is, then it is done. Like, it's the definition of done. This is a story which is ready to be worked on. So it meets the definition of done. Definition of done It meets the definition of done because a developer can right away start working on it, because it has card, it has conversation, and it has the acceptance criteria, and it's really something which developer understood, and it meets the definition of done because it includes the acceptance criteria. Everything is so clear that the developer can start working and develop this story. So that's the concept of definition of done. And MVP is minimal viable product. Minimal viable product. So consider again, if you are a new startup and you are introducing a new product in the market, what will be your first feature that you will be starting your product with? That will be a test feature, that how the market will react, and then you will get a lot of feedback on that product, on that feature that you introduce. And then you will decide, a lot of feedback will let you know that what is missing, what new feature you should be developing now. As an example, again, I would say the company that I worked was insurance company, and they started the motor insurance with the minimal viable product was the third-party insurance. And with the feedback that they got from their customers, they started to introduce more add-ons, and then they moved on with the comprehensive insurance, offering the comprehensive insurance, and so on. They moved again from the motor insurance to the health and more other insurances, right? Travel insurance and so on. So what happened with this company? This company actually started with their MVP, which was just motor insurance, and within motor insurance, it was just the third-party insurance. So that's the purpose of minimal viable product, that you will go full-fledged in the market with one feature. And if this one feature will give you a good success and a good feedback, you will move on and introduce new features if everyone is satisfied. So we had two concepts that we discussed. Definition of done, it relates to the definition of a story. If it is really defined well, it meets the criteria of definition of done. It has the card, it has the conversation, it has the acceptance criteria. It's good for a developer to start working and developing, then it meets the definition of. And we said that MVP is a feature that a company introduces as its starting value proposition, and to see what is the customer feedback and how they are perceived in the market. If the market response is good, they are welcomed with that feature. They will introduce more features on top of it and more features on top of it. This is your just first feature that you introduce to the market. Any question, guys? Any question? I think there's a question I missed. No. Okay. All right. So again, predictive projects, waterfall projects. I've been describing this again and again, that at the end of each phase, we have a phase review. What do? We do two things. Either we have some key decisions for the next phase to start, or we have some, what we said, acceptance of the deliverables for the phase one. And when we have projects which are split into phases, the phases can be sequential to each other, or these can be in parallel relationships. Yeah. So just give me a moment. So if you see two phases can run in parallel, can run in sequence, one after another. So we see that phase one, phase two, and three, there is some overlap. So either phases will be in sequential relationship, or the phases will be in parallel relationship. Parallel is not displayed here. Overlapping is displayed here, but parallel would be like this. Two phases run in parallel. Now, if you have two squads, like squad one that can actually work on phase one, and you also have squad two that can work on phase two in parallel, absolutely good. It means that you can run with entirely two different set of resources, two phases in parallel, phase one and phase two. But if you don't have this flexibility, then you will run phase after phase approach. It's just one big project which is split it into, if it was a 4-year, 5-year project, and then you split this project into few phases of 1 or 2 year each. Simple. You had a full scope that you have a residential complex that you need to build, and then in phase one you will build the park maybe, and then phase two you will build the residential building, and then in the phase three, or maybe towards the end of phase two, you will build the supermarket. Simple. So it was just to split the scope of work into various phases, but residential complex will be delivered once only. This is predictive project one delivery. Remember, although we split it into phases of 6 months in length, maybe 6 to 12 months in length, but it doesn't mean that we are good to start this complex at the end of phase one. No, I don't think so. Yeah, unless and until we have everything finished, no one will like to start living here. Yeah. So these are the face-to-face sequence, face-to-face relationships which can exist: sequential, overlapping, and parallel. These are three types of face-to-face relationships that we need to remember that these can exist. Any question on this, guys? No questions today? All good. Where does the governance happen? Governance happen at the beginning of a phase or towards end of the phase. We said this a couple of times. What do? We verify, validate our assumptions, analyze risks, accept or reject the deliverables. In the beginning, the detailed explanation of the deliverables is given, but in the end, deliverable is signed off, and we ensure that the acceptance criteria is met. So now here, there is very important concept, just like the way in Agile, we said that definition of ready, right? So this is definition of ready, provide detailed explanation of phase deliverables, right? So this is important, like we should draw some parallels that what do we do in the beginning of the project in predictive projects, that we have some requirements, and in those requirements, are these well defined or not? Yeah, if it is well defined, then it can be worked on. So at the beginning of the phase, we ensure that we have complete set of requirements. If it is complete set of requirements, detailed enough that we can work on, because this is predictive, guys. It's very important that scope of work is well defined. Scope of work is well defined. This is the unique characteristics of predictive, because once we know the scope, we can estimate two things. We can estimate the time needed, and we can estimate the cost needed. Like we can predict. That's why it's called predictive, because we can predict the time and the cost. But based on what? Based on this scope. So the scope has to be well defined, very well defined, very, very well defined, right? Then only we can deliver it. And towards the end, we have to just get the sign off for acceptance on the deliverables, and that's it. What else? If huge risks are encountered, deliverables are no longer needed, then the project will be terminated. So do we have the early closure of a project? It can happen. It can happen. Because if there is a huge risk, and then no point of derailing like the budget and the money when we know we're not going to meet it, then, and also the risk threshold is very high. The risk threshold is very high. The organization does not want to take any risk. Alas, we close this project, no more needed. It lost its business case as well, because there is no justification left. You remember I said that the business case is the document which should remain valid till the end. It should remain valid till the end. If it loses at any point in time, the business case is no more valid, alas, the project will terminate there. Either it is the phase review or it is the mid of the phase. We can call a mid-review meeting and close the phase, alas, because the business case is no more valid. Competitor has launched something, or sponsor is bankrupt, or whatever the reason, we cannot move forward, alas. Alas means finish. Okay. All good, guys? Wow. So we reached towards the
Yeah, George may not know the kalas.
yeah, I just
Gotta tell him what it is.
Yeah,
I still have the habit of
using
saying
it.
some of the common expressions in Dubai. I
Yeah.
mean, I still say them sometimes in between, like kala, inshallah, and all this.
True. That's why I just realized that we do not have. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so this is what we discussed, guys, and it's maybe 2 or 3 questions definitely will come from these 2 scenarios. Remember, I always tell you that whatever we study, it matters, but we need to remain focused on the exam objectives. And this slide tells us that from the domain 2, which is the business environment domain, we studied today appropriate governance for project. We determined today, we studied today escalation paths, thresholds, and then you may see questions built around these scenarios in the exam and in the practice also. Yeah. So I think we can take 5 minutes break, then we'll start the last section of it, which is compliance. Okay, all good?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So we did not go too much in detail, as far as I understood, about the different escalation paths and thresholds. I mean, we just saw one slide where you mentioned that if the threshold of the risk is higher than what you can tolerate, then you need to escalate it. But by different paths of escalation, what do you mean, please?
Yeah, so remember I said that not every issue you will raise to PMO, and not every issue you will raise to any internal issue. But now if it is about any internal or external issue which is beyond PMO support, then they will take it and escalate it to the steering committee, where steering committee will. Company that I worked was the insurance company, and they started the motor insurance with the minimal viable product was the third-party insurance. And with the feedback that they got from their customers, they started to introduce more add-ons, and then they moved on with the comprehensive insurance, offering the comprehensive insurance, and so on. They moved again from the motor insurance to the health and SME support, which from the any internal in the exam and in the practice also. Yeah. So I think we can take 5 minutes break, then we'll start the last section of it, which is compliance. Okay, all good?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So we did not go too much in detail, as far as I understood, about the different escalation paths and thresholds. I mean, we just saw one slide where you mentioned that if the threshold of the risk is higher than what you can tolerate, then you need to
we
escalate.
have reached
But by different paths of escalation, what do you mean, please?
section. Yeah. So remember, I said that not every issue you will raise to reminder, business and not every issue you will raise to encompass project manager. For example, you are a project team member. 7% of your exam only, like 14 questions. So you are a exam will be built around member, these scenarios from the business environment. So far, what we have studied, and we'll try to finish not raise today. PM, the last topic. You will not raise every issue to the PM. Both of you will try to solve this issue at the team level. So right. Yeah. So let's say we need to have governance in projects, and to some extent governance is necessary. Too much of governance is then there is to the project manager. So this is one part, and not necessary. And so we need to find a project manager where we and his team do monitor they have an issue, progress, issues, shall they raise it to the PM, resolve those. Shall they raise it to the governance will establish around those scenarios where which are outside the area of project manager influence. Maybe he has team and the PM he needs support from top management. So the governance is established to provide that necessary support to the project managers in issues like when he has to deal with the other projects. He has dependencies, he or she has dependencies on the other projects. They will go back. So we need to have a structure in place and where he can escalate to me. So SME support. Think of it like a steering committee. SME support that you form, which for a project PMO might know better than a PM. A PM might know. You present the project status to the steering committee from where to get the bi-weekly basis. You can cloud or some other special support. Frequency again it depends linked with all how much tight governance you want. They will guide them to the responsible person. So here we said that not everything would be highlighted to the governing body because governance will include the senior vice president, maybe sometimes vice president or top management, and also the internal you will director PMO or maybe any other. But for example, you have functional managers, regulator. I mean, governing body, maybe government. Yeah, your material is stuck in custom. Now, steering committee is well connected with the government bodies. So for any external support where you are actually stuck and you don't have PMO support even, you will ask who is a responsible person to be approached in some other company, in some other government body, in a regulation, in custom. So steering committee is top management, so they might escalate, provide you the responsible person. So we want to establish some kind of, would you have highlighted this that we didn't discuss it? On the shoulders of just to summarize, team level issues